Hello, Mr. Theis, and thank you for making the time to meet with us today.
Absolutely, my pleasure. Thank you very much, Alice.
So, if young students like us who have never heard of the World Bank before, how would you explain it in the simplest way possible?
Well, it's a great question. Thank you. The World Bank was originally founded. There was a meeting of countries that got together. 45 different countries that gathered during World War II when the fighting was still happening. They thought, we need something for when the fighting stops, when World War II stops. And so these folks right here in this picture got together and said, let's figure out an international economic system that might make a little more sense so that countries can work together in the sandbox and not fight with each other. Because in the first half of the 20th century, there'd already been 2 world wars. And that's no way to run a global economy. So that's how we were founded. We were called the International Bank for Reconstruction and Development. The reconstruction part was rebuilding after the war. But now most of the stuff we do is development, which is trying to create opportunities for people in developing countries.
So, we saw from the World Bank's website that it has 2 main goals: ending extreme poverty and boosting prosperity on a livable planet.
Yep.
Yeah. So, what does that mean exactly, and how can it translate into real practice?
Well, if you picture the fact that right now there are hundreds of millions of people around the planet that are living on essentially like $2 a day, which is not, a way that you can feed your family, create opportunity for future generations. It makes it hard to get good health care for your family. So, you guys get to go to dentists and doctors and stuff. In a lot of these countries, parents might want to take their kids for that, but they can't maybe afford to. So what we're trying to do is create education opportunities, health opportunities, have roads so that farmers can sell their goods that they grow. And when we try and do that, that kind of has the ending poverty, because if folks can sell their farm goods, they're making money. And then the prosperity is helping people get healthier and better educated for the future.
How does an idea for a project turn into real money and real sustainability?
Great question. So we sit down with the governments of these countries. We have offices in more than 120 different countries where we have people sitting in those countries talking to the members of the government. Let's say that we're talking to the education ministry about putting in some schools and creating some school materials so that kids can learn. So we sit down and say, okay, how much will this cost? Where is it needed most? And can we do it in a way that really makes the biggest impact on educating the most kids possible? And we sit down, we negotiate it, we discuss it. And then once we have a plan together with the government, representatives of our 189 member countries, we're actually owned by these countries. The World Bank is owned by countries, 189 of them. We sit down with representatives from those countries and essentially say, would you approve some of this money for this country, for this project? And the board goes, kind of kicks the tires a little bit and goes, this looks like it's going to do a good job of educating some kids, both boys and girls. So let's do it. And then we approve it. And then we implement the project over a series of years to make sure that it's doing the right job, that it's achieving what it was meant to when we first made the deal with the board. And, so far so good. We're seeing really strong results. We've had, increases in educational results, as I said, for both boys and girls, improved immunization rates in health projects for kids against, preventable diseases, and, good stuff like that really helps future generations to prosper.
So, movies and news make these international organizations seem like superheroes or mysterious powers pulling strings.
Yeah.
What is the biggest misunderstanding people have about how the World Bank operates today?
Well, I don't know what the biggest is, but I'll tell you, there has been kind of this growing mistrust of not just the World Bank, but large organizations and institutions. Part of that, I'd say, is kind of our fault a little bit. Maybe we could have explained ourselves better. Maybe we could have been more transparent. Maybe we could have helped people, just as we're doing right now, understand us more. But here we are. So we are trying. You've been to our website. We try to explain ourselves well. We put up videos. We have meetings. We travel around the world. We go to different conferences and sit down with civil society and with members of people living in the countries to try and, build that understanding. It's a long process because a lot of people have never heard of us in the first place, especially in rich countries like this. Because why would you know what the World Bank is if you've never had to have its support for a project? But the governments know who we are, and they like us, and they support us because they think we do good work. So everyone may not know who we are, but a lot of the right people do.
So for our young viewers who might be thinking, could I ever work in this kind of place, or could I help with global development? What skills or mindsets are probably the most important?
Well, certainly, as I said, education's really important, not just getting through grade school and high school, but then going to college. We have more than 1,200 people working here that have PhDs. So they didn't just get their undergrad, but then they got their master's, and then they got a PhD on top of that. More than 1,000 people. And they're getting it not just in things like economics, but in agriculture and in global health and in diplomacy and foreign service. So there's a lot of different skills that people bring to the bank. But one of the best things you can do, particularly when you're younger, is just get more and more aware and engaged of global issues. I mean, if you don't take an actual print newspaper at home, a lot of people don't, but maybe you could persuade your parents to do it so that you could actually, because picking up the paper, there's nothing like it. And then you're paging through and you're seeing pictures of the various global figures, and all of a sudden you're like, I recognize him, that's the prime minister of that country. And all of a sudden your mind kind of opens up and you learn different things about the world. One of the best things you can ever do if you ever want to work here is know a lot about the world. And there's no better place to start than just reading the news.
So if you could leave our audience with a big takeaway on why the World Bank still matters in 2026 and beyond, what would it be?
3 reasons, I'd say. The first is a moral reason, that having a world where hundreds of millions of people live in extreme poverty isn't really a moral world. It's not a world. If you have that many people that don't have education, don't have access to healthcare, that feels to me morally wrong. But there's another good reason, and it's an economic reason, that when countries grow, they trade more with each other. Countries buy a bunch of goods. I mean, right now, for this country, more than half of our agriculture exports, the stuff we farm and grow, like corn and wheat and beans, more than half gets sold to developing countries. So they're already buying our stuff, and so if they get healthier, they can buy more, and that's good because then they're getting good food and our farmers are getting to sell their stuff. So there's a second reason, moral and economic. But there's a third reason I'd say that's important, and what I'm going to call it is national security. That when countries work together, that cooperate, sit on the same board at the same table, when you look people in the eyes, you don't get so angry at them because you realize that we're all kind of rowing in the same direction. And I'd say that, having problems like education and like health addressed in countries, I mean, you may remember that about 5 years ago we had a health problem that was global. So we need to have global cooperation on things like health so that we're all kind of making sure that we're ready for the next one. Because I'm sorry to say there'll probably be a next one. So 3 reasons: moral, economic, national security reasons why international cooperation in places like the World Bank is a cool thing.
Thank you, Mr. Tyson.
Pleasure. Nice to see you.
Thank you.
Good to see you. Thank you.